Welcome to Journey. My name's Jamie. I'm one of the pastors here. Man, it is exciting to see all that progress out there, isn't it? Yeah, blowing stuff up. We're in a series called Anthology, Discovering God in the Sacred Text, and we're really doing this. There are all these questions about the Bible, and so we said, let's do a series on the Bible, and then we laid out the series, and today, I'm not sure why we decided we could do this on Sunday. We're going to talk about morality in 30 minutes. Yep. Here's what I'm going to give you a couple suggested reads because I'm not going to have time. There are so many directions to go. I will not have time to go. So if you're interested in this subject and how morality is shifting and being shaped and how we understand it in culture today, here are three very recent and relevant reads. One, The Righteous Mind: Why Good People Are Divided by Politics and Religion. This is by Jonathan Haidt. He's a professor at New York University. Number two, Sex, God, and the Conservative Church, written by Tina Shermer Sellers. She's a professor and therapist at Christian University in Seattle. Super fascinating. Number three, Unclean by Richard Beck. He's a professor at Abilene Christian University, ACU. We probably have some ACU alum hanging around here in Texas. And part of the reason I was kind of looking at I could give you like 10 more books that I was in this week, in the last few weeks actually, setting this up. But these were interesting books with different perspectives from different parts of the country. And I was curious because we live in a country where we all have been programmed about how we see morality. Not just a country, everyone is programmed. Remember, we've talked about that? I'll circle back to that in a minute. Let me give you an example of one of the phrases that's been used in the church for many years. Let's see if you've ever heard this. Related to sin. Hey, when it comes to sin, here's the deal. We just need you to hate the sin, but love the sinner. Anybody ever heard that phrase? I may have said it. I hope not, but I might have. The phrase is disruptive for me, and it always has been, but I haven't quite understood why. Like at one level, I kind of get the logic, but I think the reason it's always been disruptive for me is because I don't think it works. Let's come back to that phrase in a little bit and go to a passage of Scripture, Matthew chapter 9, verses 9 through 13. So we've been in the book of Matthew. Matthew's the very first book in the New Testament. So the Bible's set in two testaments, an old one and a new one. Matthew's the first book. And this opening passage, or this passage, it's not really an opening passage. We're already in chapter 9. But this passage is where Matthew tells us his story. Little framework for Matthew. Matthew would have been considered one of the most immoral people of his day. So he was a tax collector, which means he was a bit of a loan shark. He collected money, skimmed off the top, kept profits for himself, and he was a traitor. He betrayed his ethnic heritage because he was always surrendering to the Roman system. So here's a Jew in a Roman system who's kind of in cahoots with the Romans to basically steal money from his own people. So in a culture where money is a dominant fixture in the Jewish culture, it's a matter of if you have money, you're seen as being blessed. If you don't have money, you're seen as being cursed. Here's a man who's very wealthy. You think, well, he could be blessed, but because of his criminal activity as perceived by those, and I think that would be a fair observation, he was, from the Jewish elite, considered one of the most immoral people of his day. So it's somewhat interesting and fairly thematic that the first book in the New Testament is with the most immoral person of the day. So that's pretty consistent with how Jesus does things. So again, I'm setting the context so we understand the passage. As Jesus was walking along, he saw a man called Matthew sitting at the tax office. Hey, Matthew, follow me. Matthew rose up and followed him. Now, there's a whole lot compressed in two lines. Remember this when you're reading the Bible. We don't get all the details. You don't get all the conversations. What we get is that something about Matthew was ready. And Jesus must have seen something in Matthew, because there's lots of other people that clearly are not ready, but there's something about this interaction. Jesus says, I want you to be one of my apprentices. And Jesus was a rabbi. And this would have been a very unusual thing for a religious teacher to come to Matthew and invite him to be part of his inner circle. But Jesus does, and Matthew's ready. He responds, rose up and followed him. Look at the very next line. I want you to pay attention to Matthew's next actions. What happens? You'll get it. It's implicitly intoned in the next verse. When he was at home, Jesus, sitting down to a meal, there were lots of tax collectors and sinners there who'd come to have dinner. Sorry, this is Matthew. When Matthew was at home, sitting down to a meal, there were lots of tax collectors and sinners there who'd come to have dinner with Jesus and his disciples. What's the implication? Matthew comes to follow Jesus, and what must happen that follows? Hey, Jesus, by the way, I got a lot of friends. Jesus apparently says, cool, how about I'll come to your house and we'll all have a party together? Like, let's all have dinner. Okay. So remember from a few weeks ago, in this culture, having a meal with another person was second only to the act of sex. So having a meal was an act of intimacy. It was inclusive. It was close. It was togetherness. It was acceptance. So this is a really, really big deal. When the Pharisees saw it, those of you that are hanging out with us, listening to stories of Pharisees, it's probably not going to surprise you. The Pharisees saw it. They said to his disciples, why does your teacher eat with tax collectors and sinners? Now, I want you to think about the last time you smelled something that was really disgusting, like an odor that was awful. What did your face do? Or the last time somebody asked you to eat something that was disgusting. I was in China a few years ago. They have really unusual things they offer as food. One of them was scorpions. So they're like, would you like a scorpion? To which I said, well, how's it been prepared? The culinary preference that I have. They said, it's been fried. I said, sure. It tasted like potato chips. The guy who I was with, not interested in eating the fried scorpion. Now, there were some other things, some roaches and some other things I was not that interested in eating. Now, I just got a couple of you right there. You went, ooh. By the way, you know, the lie to me guy, like the facial feature people, we all have the same universal response to disgust. Something happens in the muscles in our face. I want you to pay attention because this is what's happening in the Pharisees' faces while they're talking to the disciples. Why does your teacher eat with tax collectors and sinners? Disgusting. Jesus heard them. We don't know if this is like divine hearing, like bionic man hearing, like he just accessed this thing as divine, or they just were loud. Maybe they were New York Jews. I don't know. Jesus responds, I'm from New York, sorry. Okay, sorry. It isn't, come back. It isn't the healthy who need a doctor, he said, it's the sick. And then he says this, and by the way, pay attention to this phrase because it's going to be thematic for us today. Go and learn what this saying means. It's mercy I want, not your attitude of disgust. Now, the word here is sacrifice. But the whole ritualistic cleansing, the whole arc of the Jewish experience was all about cleansing and purifying. It had been in place all the way since the Old Testament books. But Jesus arrives and he constantly is dealing with what's considered impure and he's making it pure. Something about his touch. His first miracle was taking cleansing jugs of water and turning them into wine. There's something thematic happening with Jesus. But this is a powerful statement. I think it's the centerpiece of his theology. I would also say it helps set the trajectory of morality. It's mercy that I want, not your disgusting response. Or disgusted response. My job isn't to call uptight people, but sinners. Oops, I read that wrong. My job isn't to call upright people, but sinners. Let's have a working definition for morality. Morality is a particular system of values and principles of conduct, especially one held by a specified person or group or society. So let's talk about journey. As followers of a Trinitarian God, if you were with us a couple weeks ago, we unpacked this a little bit. We root our morality in a relational exchange of God, the Father, Son, and the Spirit. So for us, the Bible serves as our guide in leading us to establish values and virtues that we believe reflect the character of God. And in understanding this, it helps us serve our local church, it helps us serve our local community, also helps us serve the world beyond. So we are all framing up morality all the time. We're all actually making moral decisions throughout the day in everything. But what we've discovered in the last few weeks in particular is that all of us who are interpreting the Bible have various perspectives on what it says. I mean, this is true of different denominations, but if we just took a poll for everybody in here and we said, hey, what do you believe about the Bible about this? We'd get lots of different perspectives. So how do you frame up morality when you have this many different perspectives? And second to that, all of us have been programmed by our family of origin and culture to read the Bible through a distinctive lens, or not read the Bible at all. We're all dealing with programming. 90% of what happens throughout our day is subconscious. Most of you didn't get in your car, those of you who drove, and go, I wonder where those pedals are again. So, right wouldn't make me go fast. Like, you didn't think about that. You just got in, subconscious program, you got in, you drove. This is happening all the time, 90% of what we're doing. So there's actually very little that we're actually giving our intent to. So if this much, 90% of us is subconscious programming, then maybe we should pay a little attention to how we've been programmed. What has shaped our view of the world? Now, there's a passage in the Old Testament that might be helpful. Micah chapter 6:8. It goes like this. He has told you, O man, what is good. This is a prophet speaking about God. God has told you, man, what is good. And what does the Lord require of you? 3 things. To act justly, love mercy, and walk humbly with your God. Now, this is a passage that was written in the Middle East about 3,000 years ago by a man to a people. So it has its own context. But we can find that there's probably some principles in there that hold true to us today. This idea to act justly, love mercy, and walk humbly seems to be at the centerpiece, I think, of the morality that Jesus is ascribing to. But unfortunately, it's not exactly the morality that the church throughout the centuries has ascribed to. As a matter of fact, a dominant force in shaping the morality of the church has been disgust. Here's what I mean. There's an emotion that we call disgust. Most of it has to do with things we let into our body. So it's interesting, it's a learned behavior. As a child, you have a little child, toddler walking around or crawling around, and what are they doing most of the time? There's no disgust. That looks interesting. Let's try it. And you're like, no, the dog left that there. Let's not put that in our mouth. Like, and you're going, and you're training. No, disgust is a boundary-setting action, so let's make sure we put it in that place. So it seems like maybe disgust is sometimes helpful. Yeah. Sometimes it's not helpful. Because another thing that happens with disgust is it's a form of expulsion as well. If you put something in your mouth and it tastes gross, have you ever done, like, spit it out? That's disgusting. Or you walked into a room, it smelled, where's the spray? I want to make that go away. It disgusts me. The expulsion expression is a behavioral response aimed at pushing away, avoiding, and expelling. Some of you can already tell where I'm going. I just heard the quarter drop for a few of you right there. Ding. This is what's going on in our passage. The Pharisees are disgusted by Jesus' touching and proximity of what is unclean. It's a visceral response for them. They are sickened by it. Why? Because most of us, not just religious people, most people believe that evil's like a virus or a pollutant. If you get close enough to it, it will get on you. And if sin is a contaminant, then the religious leaders certainly saw it that way, then extending hospitality becomes next to impossible. If you wonder why through the years in the church has quarantined itself, built big buildings, and said, let's have centers where people can come and do all of life within the walls, you can understand why. Why would you want to go out there where sin will contaminate you? It will pollute you. Its evil will get on you. Let me give you an example of what social scientists use an experiment. And they brought some people in. They said, hey, this is a World War II display. And they're looking at the objects and whatever else. And they go, by the way, one of the things we have is, this is crazy, but we have Hitler's sweater that he wore a week before he died. and people are kind of surprised, and then they pull it out, and people literally physically move backwards. And they hold it up, and they go, it has not been washed since he wore it. You can still see some of the sweat stains on the armpit. Is there anybody here who would like to try it on? They take another step backwards. I'm repelled by that. It disgusts me, and it's like there's some evil on it. If I get close enough to it, it's going to do something to me. So what's the natural response? You don't go near the sweater. If I was there, I might have said, hate the sin, love the sweater. I acknowledge that's the obnoxious part of me. But this is what happens, and that's why the phrase doesn't work. When you say hate the sin, but love the sinner, it doesn't work because the nature of the phrase contaminates the two. In our mind, when we think of it like that, hate the sin, there's a psychological response that comes up, disgust and expulsion. That's why it's never worked. And what's happening? It's shaping our morality. Because if something's contaminated, it doesn't, and by the way, it doesn't matter the dose, it's just contaminated. If I said, let's see, oh, it's the middle of the summer in Nashville, it's hot, we're out on a ball field, we're playing all day, no one had any water, we were out for 3 hours, we're so thirsty, and I go, hey, I got this massive, like it's a pool-sized metal tin of the freshest spring water you can ever imagine. And we're all sprinting toward it. We're so thirsty, we can't wait. But right before you get there, I take a teaspoon of urine and I put it inside. And then I swish it around a little bit with my spoon. I go, let's go. Now, some people might be like, I'm so thirsty, it doesn't matter. But you're going to have others like, that's disgusting. I can't drink. Yeah, but it's just a teaspoon. It's contaminated. See, the dose doesn't matter. It's permanent, non-rehabilitative ruin. And unfortunately, if you've ever been on the receiving end of this, if a religious person has ever pointed out the speck in your eye while ignoring the log cabin wedged into their own, then you know what it's like to feel the dehumanizing words of what you are from their perspective. And what you are from their perspective is disgusting. See, it's their framework for morality. And by the way, when that's levied on a person, you understand the weight of judgment and shame. Because this typically happens from religious people, sadly, because of this framework of disgust, that they apply a dehumanizing label on you, and then they attach it to you for all to see. This is what happened in Nazi Germany. I was in Jerusalem going through the Holocaust Museum, and one of the things they had in a case was a game that looked like Monopoly. And one of the squares was a Jew, and it just said disease that has to be eradicated. Not just a few of the Jews are a contaminant to the human race. This is what you were being told when you were 5 years old and 6 years old playing games. Throw your garbage out, and by the way, do whatever you can to kill off the Jews on the planet because they're contaminating the human race. And we can't stop with a few of them. We have to get rid of all of them for the race to become pure again. The church has its own versions of this, sadly. My dad just told me this last week. My grandfather was a truck driver. He was not a follower of Christ. He indicated maybe there was a faith following toward the end of his life, but he lived a lifetime not knowing God. And at one point, my dad came to faith late in life, and he was 18. I remember him, college age, saying to his dad, "You want to come to church with me?" and Grandpa George said, "Son, if I walk into the church, the roof will cave in, followed by the walls, and everyone inside will die. Trust me, you don't want me walking through the doorway." What had he come to believe? He was a contaminant to a place of purity. Do you know the language we even use for, this is a church thing. We use this sometimes for church people. Hey, what happened to that guy? Oh, there was a moral failure. pastors or children's workers or a deacon or an elder or somebody who works in a church somewhere, what happened? There was a moral failure. What does that actually mean? He had an addiction to sugar? Like when they're saying that, what are they saying? No, in our frame, I'm disgusted because he stole money or something sexual. Those are when we say it in evangelical subculture, hopefully we don't say that, but what's been said in evangelical subculture, that's usually what it's referring to. We have elevated a few of the sins that disgust us more than other sins. Here's what's not said. And that lady, she's got a drug addiction. Really? What's her problem? She loves caffeine. Or how about this? Hey, we had to let that go. Why? Because he used fear to manipulate his staff. That lady, she would rage at people in the church. Every single person that disagreed with her, she erupted in rage. It was a moral problem. He was a workaholic. All he did was work because he found his identity in what he accomplished. Moral problem. Oh, that lady, she just wasn't nice. I don't know if you guys have seen this. Fred Rogers from Mr. Rogers, there's a book now about his life, and he said he had 3 rules for living: be kind, and be kind. Hey, we have a moral problem. That person's just not kind. I got good news for you today, or bad, depending on your perspective. Moral failures all over the place. All of us are moral failures. All of us are sinners. And when you awaken to Christ, you're also a saint. Somehow there's a contradiction, and we're all walking contradictions. If we could come to see this, you love God, but you're in a constant state of fear. You're incredibly generous, but lust seems to be your constant companion. You're nurturing with children, but you're a closet alcoholic. You embrace your sensuality, but you're weighed down by shame. You have the gift of hospitality, but you can't use it because you spend all your time judging people. By the way, nobody gave me your name or anything. If you're like, God, who's telling? I don't like these examples. It's just us. What if there was no resolve but only contradictions? Sit with that for just a minute. Have you ever heard a story about a guy on his deathbed who's like, hey, come close. I just want to tell you, I finally got to perfection, and it's so great. Like, if you just worked a little harder, you could be where I am, about to die now. Have you ever heard that story? So we are faced to live with our contradictions. We have to walk with them. So what would that, if you actually believe that I have to live with certain contradictions. Now, for those of you who are already down the slide of like, so does that mean I get to do whatever I want? No, we'll come back to that. Paul addressed that. Should I sin all the more that grace would abound? No. But here's what I want you to do. How would it change your paradigm for living if you knew you had to exist with your contradictions? And not just you, your spouse, your neighbor, every politician in the United States of America. How would it impact the way you judged others and yourself? Because let me give you a frame for just a minute. We all walked in here today with presenting problems, an obstacle that's in front of us, something we'd like to go away, or something we want to do that we've not yet done. We all live in this ever-present tension. And so it's a problem. It might be a stressor. It might be a challenge. It might be an opportunity, whatever word you're using for it, but it's the thing in front of you. Have you ever noticed what happens? You're praying for that thing, you're trying to get rid of that thing, you're hoping for that thing, that thing, that thing, that thing, that thing, object A, they call it in philosophy. I'm going after that. And finally, you either get it or you remove it. What happens? Next. Well, now we got to pray about that thing. And we're preoccupied, we're stressed about the thing. And the thing's probably sometimes not even real. And you know what? You know what's happening with the exchange with us and the thing? Because sometimes the thing is a person that we just want to change. You know what's happening in this energy? Judgment. I really think you could take any person's problem here. You could list off whatever the problem is, whatever the challenge is, whatever the struggle is. You could even insert some of the emotions like fear and shame or whatever else. And I think if you get down to the bottom of the whole thing, where's the house built on? What's the foundation? Is it rock or is it sand? Here's the sandy foundation. It's built on resentment. And it usually starts with you're resentful of you. I'm actually angry with me because I'm not perfect enough. I'm not good enough. I should have done that better. I'm angry with me for letting that person get this close. Now, it doesn't usually stay there, and the resentment usually flows over pretty quickly to other people, and you're resentful of them and you judge them as well. But oftentimes, the center of the whole thing, or the foundation of the whole thing, that energy you're holding on to that you call stress and anxiety, it's just resentment. Maybe it's time to give it a different word. I'm so stressed. I'm so resentful. How about that? How you doing today? I'm really resentful. Oh, who are you resentful of? Me, you, a lot of other people. You guys are pretty good at being honest, Attorney. Like, I actually think we should try this. Just in real time. Every time you say I'm stressed, say I'm resentful. How about this at the workplace? How you doing? Resentful? About what? Lots of stuff. I'm kind of resentful that you asked. Because I didn't want to have to say this, but they asked me at church to change the language. But it's true, right? Like, doesn't that resonate because it's true? Here's the problem with arbitrating morality based on disgust and judgment. It completely misses the fundamental truth about Jesus. Because here's what we learn about Jesus when you read the stories. When people come in contact with Jesus, they're purified and cleansed. Because they come in contact with love and mercy. Not disgust. Christ is not afraid to walk with sinners, touch sinners, be in the proximity of sinners. And it's a good thing, because none of us would know him. How do you displace the resentment? There's only one word, and the English doesn't do it justice, so I'm going to give you a Greek version. Agape. You can use a lot of willpower. It'll work for maybe an hour or two. Maybe you get a day or two out of it, depending on how strong your willpower is, but it won't last long. And it won't heal it. It won't heal that place. The only thing that heals the resentment and transforms that stuff is agape. 1 Corinthians 13, 4-8. Agape is patient. Agape is kind. It does not envy. It does not boast. It is not proud. Does not dishonor others. It is not self-seeking. It is not easily angered. Love keeps no record of wrongs. Let me read that again. Love does not hold on to resentment. Love does not delight in evil, but rejoices in the truth. It always protects and trusts and hopes and perseveres. Love never fails. One of the reasons we've been given the Bible is to be given a bunch of stories of people with contradictions. Abraham, Jonah, Samson, David, Rahab, Ruth, Peter, Paul. What draws us to the sufferings of God messengers, according to Walter Wink, he says it's not perfection, but it's broken wholeness. And this is why we don't just go, sin all the more that grace may abound, because we actually want to be whole. We recognize we can't be perfect on this earth, but we long to be whole. What does it mean to be whole? To recognize that our identity is in Christ. The true self, the ego self, is always broken, but we're pressing toward wholeness. Not because I'm so afraid, not because I'm so full of shame, not because I'm full of resentment. That might be the starting place because it's putting us in hell. But what shifts is I actually want to be in the will of God because of love, because of agapeo, because I want to be where Christ is. I want to be in alignment. It is the crucifixion of our idealized self-images. It's in the crucifixion of our Instagram self-images that we discover our true being. It's when we crucify our Instagram pictures that we discover our true being, which includes those aspects that we would rather disown. Maybe make your own little personal Instagram of all the ugly stuff. You don't have to make that one public. That might be weird. Here's what I want you to see about me. Here's what I don't, but I'm going to accept it. Because I'm a walking contradiction. This broken part of me puts me in hell. It causes me to suffer. So I keep praying that God brings shalom to this. And I'm going to align. And there are times it won't be a struggle and I'm going to have beautiful moments. And there are other times, whatever the besetting sin is, and remember, sin by definition is just a disruption of shalom. It's a disruption of flourishing in your relationship with Christ. So remove the disgust mechanism that you're a contaminant or a contaminated person, and instead say, I am a child of God who's full of love. Yes, I have a brokenness, and this sin puts me in hell. It crushes me. So I don't want it. I repent, I confess, I speak it out so that I can come back into alignment with my true self. We don't live lives of absent of restraint as hyper-individualists, but rather we walk in humility, first with ourselves, then with others, in recognizing that the hardships of life and the hardships in other people's lives come to us as a teacher. Romans 5:2-5 summarizes this beautifully, and we boast in the hope of the glory of God, the magnificence that God's actually doing something in the midst of the contradiction. You get that? This is what I'm boasting in. How you doing? I'm boasting in the fact that I'm a walking contradiction. Why? Because it reveals that God must love me, because I have trouble loving me. So this is what I'm boasting in at work. What's the glory of God? He loves me, and I'm a complete contradiction. And not only so, but we also glory in the contradiction, in the sufferings, in the struggle. Why? Because I know that the suffering, the hell that I live in, wakes me up enough to know I can't live like this, and it produces perseverance, and in perseverance, character, and character, hope. And hope doesn't leave me in shame, because God's love, his state of shalom, his givenness, has been poured into our hearts through the Holy Spirit who's been given to us. Oh, this verse is so rich. If you go, Jamie, give me a hook for love. I get resentment. That's really obvious. But love is, that English version is so rough. How about use this phrase, givenness? Because that's what's happening in this verse. What did God do? God's love has been poured out. So religious sacrifice, attitude of disgust is what? Pulling back, avoiding. What is God? Pouring into through the Holy Spirit, who has been given to us. It's just this picture of God coming close, God coming close, God coming close, God being generous, God giving, God being generous, God giving, as opposed to religious morality says, that's disgusting, get away, contaminated, I don't want to be near you. We got two options as the church. We can spend our time as moral superiors, making sure we sacrifice ourselves and everyone else in the name of purity. Or we can choose mercy over sacrifice. We can let go of our resentment and hold no record of wrong. And we can replace judgment with givenness. And Luke summarizes this so well. Book of Luke, New Testament, Luke chapter 6, verse 38. Give, and it will be given to you, a good measure, pressed down, shaken together, and running over. It will be, I like it's such a great picture, poured into your lap. For with the measure you use, it will be measured unto you. If you want to judge other people, You can. And just walk around with resentment and judgment and live in that personal hell. If you want a state of givenness, of mercy and grace, you can. And that mercy and grace is going to find its way right back to your soul. Would you bow your heads and close your eyes with me? Oh, I feel something. I'm a 3, so I don't know what I feel. I think I feel sad because I think a lot of us have lived a lot of life immersed in judgment. And I hope you hear in these passages from the Bible words of hope. That you don't have to live in self-condemnation and self-loathing. And you could just stop being the judge of the world. Trust me, 30 years I've been in the dirt of people's lives, except for the exception, the rare exceptional narcissist. Most people spend most of their days beating the hell out of themselves. They don't need more judgment. Jesus says to the religious people, take time to meditate on this. It's mercy that I want, not your disgust. I guess I know enough of your stories to know some of you have been the brunt of that disgust. And I want to remind you today, it was just a lie. It's not true. You're a child of God, crafted by Him, a light of the world. I'm going to pray for us in just a second. Today we have got communion set up in the front and the back. For those of you in overflow, it's in the back of your room. I want you to just think about what Jesus asked us to do. Take this bread, my body broken. Take this wine, my blood spilled. He actually goes right at the disgust mechanisms and forces us to the table to say, come, behold, this is what love looks like. My mercy displayed on the cross to the world. So crucify the idealized self-image. Start giving yourself some compassion. And then start giving the people around you that same compassion. Father, if we could really do this as a church, if we had really lived this in our families. And I speak out today, Father, beyond the if, because there's an acknowledgement that we can, empowered by your Spirit. You've told us we're the body of Christ now. So would we not pull back in disgust, but lean forward in mercy and grace and love? We do remember your great gift, your sacrifice on the cross, the love that you have poured out upon us. Not a picture of disgust, but a picture of redemption. We remember you, these prayers that we sing out are our way of saying thank you. In Christ's name, amen.